power cybersecurity.
Exciting, or you secure a product to a certain point and you keep pushing the boundaries of the threat model.
It's not enough to say, I checked all the boxes that are here. I have this certification, I have that degree. Well, so do 50,000 plus other people.
Exactly. I looked at them and it was, it opened the door to a new world to me.
The idea was to build a community around it, to foster an idea that will outlast me.
I say go with your dreams, if you want to do 2 things, if you want to do 3 things, if you want to do everything professionally, you can. You should just try it.
Solid experience and a background that, when I went back out into industry was, frankly attractive.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hack Chat. My name is Marco Figueroa, and today we have a special guest. I am up past my bedtime because the person I speak to, or I'm going to speak to, is based out of Australia, and she is so important. I said, I'm gonna pass up. I'm gonna stay way above my bedtime to speak to this person. So today we have Noushin Shabab. She is a cybersecurity researcher based in Australia, specializing in reverse engineering and targeted attack investigator, and works at the GReAt team, the famous GReAt team of Kaspersky. Her research focuses on investigation of advanced cyber criminals activities, with a particular focus in local threats in Asia Pacific region. Prior to joining Kaspersky Labs, she used to work as a senior malware analyst and security software developer, focusing on rootkit analysis and detection techniques, as well as APT investigations. Give a warm welcome to her. I'm super excited for this interview because there's so many things I want to cover. Can you give the listeners a background and how you began your journey into cybersecurity and reversing malware?
Sure. Hi, Marco, and hello to the audience. It's lovely to talk to you. And I didn't know that it's so late there. It's usually the way around. I usually stay up after midnight to talk to my colleagues or other people, the other side of the world. So it was a surprise to.
It is so worth it.
Thank you. So background about myself, you've said most of the things that I wanted to mention, but yeah, I started as a junior malware analyst around 10 years ago in an antivirus company in Iran. I've done different tasks in cybersecurity, especially in antivirus development environment, like writing different modules for antivirus, doing malware analysis on Windows malwares, Android malwares, in that company, my job was going on for a few years there. I had been part of different teams, as I said, Android antivirus team, unpacker development team, APT analysis team, and also one of the main parts was the anti-rootkit team, which I was responsible for the analysis of the rootkits and kernel modules of the attacks and malwares, and also writing different modules for the anti-rootkit, which was actually the job that I really liked back then. This was before I joined Kaspersky. I joined Kaspersky in 2016 as part of the GReAt team, and I've been doing APT analysis since then.
You're very humble. You're a really badass. Let's just be honest. Let's put it out there. So let me ask you, were you always interested in reversing malware?
That's a good question. Actually, to be honest, before joining the antivirus company I mentioned, I had no idea about reverse engineering. I had not even looked at one line of assembly code. Even at university, I studied IT engineering at university, and we didn't have assembly language. We learned like more high level languages, not very high level like C and C++, but not assembly. And I was not even really thinking about getting into cybersecurity. It was not as hot and as common as it is these days.
Yes, I concur. So what made you go into that?
Yeah, I was actually really interested in computer science since my middle school, and I learned different programming languages in school. Like I started with Q Basic, and then I learned Pascal, and then in university I learned C and C++, and I was always interested in like problem solving and like getting more deep into computer science tasks, anything in the computer industry, something that's more challenging and more like requires more problem solving. When I graduated from university, and I was actually I had recently started doing some postgrads as well. There was this company in Iran, my home country. They were developing an antivirus, and they were expanding. They wanted to hire people, and they obviously knew that there were not many people who are experienced in reverse engineering. So they were looking for people who were passionate about learning new stuff, trying new tasks, and like people who maybe graduated from university with higher scores and like that. So I applied for the job. I had no idea what the job was. At the first day I went for interview, they gave me some challenges to solve. I looked at them, and it was, it opened the door to a new world to me. And yeah, it was very interesting. I joined the company, and I learned as I moved on to like new tasks. I learned a lot, and I got more and more interested every day with every new task. And yeah, I guess that's how I got interested in reverse
Did it
engineering.
become a passion for you once you started to get those wheels turning and start reversing and doing things like that?
Yeah. First years, I was working super hard. Like I lived in another city, and I worked in another city. I would wake up every day like at 5 a.m. driving for 2 hours to get
That's
to
hustle. That is hustle. That is the grind and hustle that I always speak about. And I just want you to say that you drove 2 hours to a job.
Yeah, 2 hours each way, and then I would stay at the office like until 9 p.m. sometimes, also to avoid traffic, and then drive back 2 hours home. That way of working was going on for some time.
That is hustle and grit. That is something that, the passion, like I can't imagine me driving 2 hours, right? Maybe an hour, but 2, like that is that opportunity, that grind. And, how long did you do that for?
I actually did that for, I guess, 1 or 2 years. I gave up driving so long. So I moved to the city next to my workplace, and the life was much more easier after that, and I could spend more time in the office working on like new malwares and new tasks.
I mean, guys, like the listeners out there, just 2 years, that's around a 270 days of the year you're working. You were doing 5 days a week?
Yeah.
Around 270 days a year. 4 hours a day traveling. That to me is commitment, and much respect and hats off to you, because that is passion and just knowing and trusting the process to say, hey, this is going to pay off in the long run, and kudos to you. What skill have you learned that has taken your reversing to another level in the last year? I know you guys over there have been locked down for a couple of months, and over here the same. Well, and I want to start it off because my passion is reversing, right? So I would say this question dates back for me 2 years when the NSA released GReAt. And then in the last year, you started seeing a lot of plugins that has come out for GReAt. And I want to say for me that took my skills to another level, because not only have I written plugins for GReAt, but there's so many plugins out there for GReAt that I've fallen in love with GReAt. Now I do use IDA and GReAt almost the same, but have fallen in love with GReAt. So on to you. What in the last year has taken your skills to another level?
Yeah, actually, I have to try GReAt more. Haven't played around with it that much. Still sticking to IDA.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I can say it. It was not that last year. I actually started getting to know about this a long time ago, but in the last year, with like less traveling and more time to focus on work, I felt it much more than before. So yeah, that's the thing I want to say is to teach people how to do what you want to learn better. So I've been doing like I've been helping newcomers. I had helped newcomers in the old company a lot, and also during the past few years I've done some workshops for like university students, for like conferences with like general audience of cybersecurity experts. But during the past year I've done a few more workshops, and I explicitly wanted to focus on a topic that I had not done a workshop on before, like not general like malware analysis, but with focus on specific topics. So last year I delivered a workshop in a number of conferences to and I looked at like exploit codes used in the wild, like malwares that exploit vulnerabilities. I picked the most common vulnerabilities and tried to teach the trainees how to reverse them and how to understand how they actually work. And it actually helped me to improve my skills as well. And yeah, some of these malwares I hadn't looked at them before myself, but for the workshop I started playing around with them, learning every single part of them. And then when I was doing the workshop, with all the challenges that would the workshop have like new questions from students, like new problems that they face. It actually helped me to improve my reversing skills.
Now, are some of those paid workshops free, or is it like just for conferences only paid? Because that skill is super important, right? A lot of times I reverse like malware that didn't have exploits within them.
Actually, yeah, I never did a paid workshop for a conference.
Is it free?
Yeah.
Is it out there that we can download? And if so, can you provide?
There might be. I have some. I have the slides on my LinkedIn. I guess
you need to throw them up on GitHub or something like that, and then tweet them out so I can retweet it, because that is something for me, I've never learned in a class. It was like learned on the job. And that is a skill for someone coming into the game that's super important to learn and understand how to pinpoint that before really getting a job and dissecting malware and stuff like that. So you can go ahead and do that. So it's super important. And I don't know if there's many courses out there that focuses on that, which is, I want to say, you guys, you are like the first course. I've never heard of anyone like specifically pinpointing that.
Yeah, actually, I got lots of feedbacks that people wanted me and my co-trainer to expand the workshop. It was actually meant for 1 day or half a day workshop. Yeah, I guess 1 day workshop or 2 half days. But yeah, we were planning to.
You could probably do a 4-day where you do a intermediate to reversing, and then have that on like the first 2 days is reversing malware, and then the Wednesday and Thursday of the week, train on that. I have never ever heard anyone doing that. So I mean, this is a first, and it is special, and I want to recognize that how special that's like black hat training type thing, and trainings at DEF CON and workshops at DEF CON, because I've never heard of it. So if there's other people that have done it, I'm sorry, this is the first time I've heard of it, and I want to like recognize that this needs to be in a black hat DEF CON China, DEF CON, Vegas course or workshop. So, one thing I want to tell you is, how has COVID impacted your work, and have you found it better being locked down and digging deep into work?
To be honest, remote work has always been the style of my work, at least since I joined Kaspersky, because my team, they are like, everyone is in a different place
everywhere.
Yeah, it was always like a remote work, and I would go to the office from time to time, but not too much, even before COVID. The good thing about the lockdown was that I wouldn't spend much time on preparing for trips, but it's just like a personal preference. I like to be social. I like to go out. I like to see people. It's not that I enjoy staying at home all the time. So with all the good aspects, I still prefer not to be in a lockdown.
I agree. I am a social creature, and hopefully I definitely have both shots now, and I'm excited for conferences to now begin having in-person conferences so I can go and join, and I'm super excited on that. What was the first piece of malware that you thought to yourself, this is cool, this technique is cool? I'm interested in hearing your answer, and I'll give you my answer after.
Sure. That's a very good question, because that malware actually led me and some other people in my old job to start a new team and to start a new product for the company. So that piece of malware was a rootkit that I looked at like maybe a few months after I started my work. It was for a Trojan that was called Zero Access. Not sure if you heard about it. So I looked at the kernel module. I guess there were like user mode modules as well, but the other people reversed them. So the kernel module was packed, was very sophisticated, lots of techniques. It was it was actually one of the first rootkits that I analyzed, and it was super interesting for me. Why I said it opened a new project in the company. After doing the full analysis on that rootkit, it took me actually a while to extract all the techniques, like everything from that rootkit. When we came up with the idea of writing an anti-rootkit product, like developing an anti-rootkit product, I suggested to base the different modules of the anti-rootkit on the analysis of the zero access that I did like a few years earlier. So we looked at different techniques, like how it worked to hide different processes on the system, to write modules for like finding hidden processes on the system. When we looked at the techniques that rootkit used to hide registry keys, we developed a new module to look for hidden registry keys on the system. The same for files and like network traffic and so on. It was very cool, and I guess after that I had never looked at any other rootkit that was as sophisticated and as interesting as Zero Access.
Yeah, for me, I don't even recall the actor, right? But it was a technique that I've never seen. It basically sent one ICMP packet once a month to the begin C2 that just stated, "Hey, I'm here," and I was like so like blown away. It was like in 2013, and I was just like, what? And that blew my mind. For me, it was pre APT1 days, and I was just like, man, this is super cool. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But I first met you at SAS 2018, and you spoke about finding a monster by its shadow. And I thought it was awesome how you presented, the research you presented, and the way you commanded the stage. It was impressive. And I always say, when you see someone speak, you look at someone and you like, that right there is a monster talk, because the way that person commanded the stage. And I felt that when I watched your talk. What other research have you published since 2018, right? I see you all the time. I see your LinkedIn posts. You're doing big things, right?
Thank you. That's a very nice feedback. I actually know that I'm not a very good speaker.
Hey, I'm going to tell you, do not listen to her, because it's about the content that you provide and the value you provide and the way you command that stage. And when I was in the audience, you cannot say I'm not a good speaker when I'm telling you I was in the audience and I'm giving you feedback. So for me, I thought the research, at the end of the day, the research was amazing. And you are an amazing speaker. So I'm giving you all the kudos, the credits, and what have you put out? I see these rumblings. I think you did 2020. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, thanks, Marco. Yeah, I actually did talk at SAS 2019 as well, and it was somehow the continuation of the research that you mentioned. So in 2018, I actually talked about the like extended research on the ShadowPad supply chain attack that my colleagues had investigated earlier. So I had a look at different malwares and different attacks that were related and somehow had similarities with ShadowPad. After that, the next year, I actually presented about supply chain attacks in a more like broader sense. Broader.
What were you saying? Because I feel like 2021 is like the year of supply chain attacks. Mm-hmm. We got SolarWinds, we have Code Cove and stuff like that.
Exactly. So yeah, I actually had to look at how attackers deployed like the backdoor in the products. I didn't focus on like other aspects of supply chain attacks, but mostly focused on the history of Trojanized development environments, or how the attackers compromise development environments to inject some code into the product that being developed on in that environment. So basically, like the first steps of the supply chain attack. It's not. I mean, I've had a look at the history, and it goes back to like 1970s, and but it's not always easy to find out how the supply chain attack started in the first place, because usually requires the vendor that's been compromised to cooperate and help with the investigation. But there were some cases that it was easier to investigate how it actually started. So that was the main focus of my research, and that I presented at SAS 2019. Presented it at a few other conferences as well. Last year also, I started looking at some IoT firmwares. I wanted to...
One second. You said you presented on that in 2019. On the supply chain attack, right?
Yes.
So let's just give you some kudos. You were ahead of your time. You were ahead of your time, right? The big supply chain attacks. I'm not gonna give credit to myself for bringing you on, but you know, when I see someone that is a person that is ahead, that is thinking on a different level, and I have them on, I'm just like, I know like the talent that this person has, right? And you present on things that are going to happen in the future. So kudos to you for doing that. I just wanted to point that out. So you could go into 2020, but in 2019, you were ahead of the game. So I just wanted to point that out to everyone watching.
Thank you.
There you go. Kudos to you. What did you present at SAS 2020?
Yeah, there was. I talked at one of the events that we had. Not the SAS, but we had some we had a few other webinars that were powered by SaaS, called Great Ideas.
And you have many of them.
I had talked at one of these Great Ideas about research that I had started on looking at firmwares and doing analysis on mostly like IoT firmwares. My goal was to get like give the audience the equipments to start looking at firmwares to find like anomalies or suspicious stuff in the firmwares.
Let's stop right there, because for 2 years I worked at Intel looking at firmware, and that is near and dear to my heart. So let's go into that real quick. I don't want to like say what you were doing. Were you doing UEFI stuff?
I was no.
Or like router like stuff that has firmware in that aspect.
I was mostly looking at smart home appliances or like routers or smart TVs.
There's so many bugs in those.
That sort of
Kudos
stuff.
to you, because there's so many low hanging fruits when it comes to that, and much respect to looking down there. So like firmware, a lot of people think it's hard, and for me, you know, when I was working on this team at Intel, and so much respect to the people that write UEFI, it took me a while to understand it. But once you understand it, to me, it is the Wild Wild West. It is the Windows XP of this day and age. And that's what I would say. I have so many shout outs to people that have helped me, but like firmware, to me, if you want to look at like days vulnerabilities, look at firmware, right? You know, these appliances, these home routers, and there's so many things to look at, and especially if you have a team that is collaborating on, hey, we're going to look for vulnerabilities. It's one of those things that I feel that there's a lot of low hanging fruit on. So that's awesome. Let me ask you, why is cybersecurity so infatuated with attribution? And do you think it hinders investigations if you call out or a company calls out an attack that is from a specific nation state?
I guess the reason people are really interested in attribution is that it can just be interesting for everyone. I mean, when you talk about like technical aspects of an APT attack, only like technical people or people who are interested in like in reverse engineering or in attack analysis are your audience. But everyone loves to hear about countries attacking each other. And,
it makes a good story, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
It makes a good story.
Makes a good story. But yeah, I guess that's important. But to me, it's more important to learn about an attack, like learn how it has happened, why it has happened, and how we can stop similar attacks in the future. Most of the times people hear a story and they are so excited and they talk about it, especially if a nation state actor is involved. But people do the same mistakes again and again and again and get attacked by the same techniques, same APT again and again. So I guess it's just it's just an interesting story.
Take us through the steps that lead you to find interesting samples, right? When does it dawn on you that this specific binary has the traits to lead you to a bigger discovery?
That's a good question.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I love asking all my malware reverses. I love asking this question because it interests me and it's near and dear to my heart, right? If, for instance, I was reversing something yesterday and I'm reversing this binary. I'm not going to say the binary name because it's hot for this second. But one thing I asked myself was, why is this malware using an encryption key for base 64 and then using it inside of this ransomware? And what I thought to myself was, why didn't this actor use a random generated function to create this key? And I'm like, it's lame. So this is why I always ask this question, because to me, it is very interesting where I see something like that and I know the skill set of the actor, because he shouldn't use that function. He should be using this function because I reversed something more advanced. And what that tells me is you should have used this function instead of that one. That to me is kitty. And there's multiple, I could look at the reversing the malware. It tells me if the threat actor is like an intermediate or advanced on the certain functions and how he uses the functions. So how do you find those interesting samples and it dawns on you, oh, this is good?
That's interesting. Interesting thing that you shared. So this is a very, very interesting question. I love to ask this question from everyone that I know. I love to be able to find more and more interesting malwares. But to me, it's not just the, I mean, of course, I'm more interested in reverse engineering than any other aspects of the attack analysis. But every single, maybe not every single attack, but most of the attacks, even if they are not very sophisticated, even if they are just done by very average cyber criminal groups, like small groups on maybe even like 1 or 2%, every attack that I investigate has interesting stuff for me. Like even if I find out, like what you said was quite interesting. Even if I find out that the skill set of the attackers are not that high, it's interesting because I can go look at what other mistakes they made, how I can find out about the people behind the attack. Is there something online that I can find out about them? Is there something interesting, like funny, waiting for me in another malware or module connected to this attack that I can go have a look and find out? I guess for me, it's not always like what sophisticated and interesting technique was used in a binary. It's more like what new aspects or like new stuff is in this new attack that I'm investigating. Is it sophisticated or not? If it's not sophisticated, what are the other interesting aspects about it? Sometimes it's interesting to go like do a bit more like open source intelligent analysis and find out about the people behind the attack if they are doing lots of mistakes. So yeah, I guess that's the more interesting part for me.
Yeah, I agree. For me, like I was last week reversing a binary and it used a function that I've never seen before. And to me, when I see something that is out of the ordinary, I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is something that can be tracked. So that I agree with you. It can take your analysis to a different level, and I love it. I love it. It feels like I'm a detective trying to piece together a puzzle that no one has solved, and I'm fresh on the case. And I agree. I agree with everything you said. How much do you set aside to dig deep and build your case when you're working on a campaign?
So I guess it actually depends on, I mean, it's different case by case. I personally usually tend not to finish a research. I usually, I'm more interested in going on and find more and more. But I've started to make myself stop at some point and like get some get the results out. But usually, I mean, I usually spend like just a few weeks or sometimes a few months on it.
That is awesome because I am just like you. Luckily, I have my boss that tells me, he goes, Marco, set a date, and that is your timeline. I'm going to hold you to the date. And it feels like he's my news editor. He's like, I'm going to come to you on that specific date and say, where are the goods? Like, you need to hit the deadline, and you can't go past that. And I kind of in a way like it because it allows me to sprint towards the finish line and say, this is all I got. So it's a great answer what you gave me. I'm lucky to have a boss that pushes the button and says, okay, you're going to deliver on a specific date, and whatever you have, we're going with it. And it's like, stop your research. The time has stopped. So I kind of like that. How do you expand the scope when looking into threat actor genealogy?
Yeah, I usually try to first look at like different malwares that seem to be connected to the same threat actor, and also the infrastructure, what other malwares are connected to this like infrastructure. If it's like the same C2 server or like servers, domains that were registered by the same, like with the same characteristics. And that's usually how I try to expand the investigation. Also, it's interesting sometimes to see that like similar connected artifacts can be found like in a different campaign that has a completely different victim profile. That's where you find out that the same group or like subgroups are focusing on like different victim profiles. So yeah, to me it's mostly based on the malware similarities and the infrastructure.
Nice. Can you go deep into campaigns that you've tracked and describe how you pivot to find more artifacts? For me, the SSD, the TLSH, which I kind of like, that has taken over. I kind of use that more rather than SSD. What do you use? What are the techniques besides, looking at domains and stuff like that?
That's a difficult question. Again, I can say that it depends on the attack. It depends on the malware. Like if it's a cybercrime activity, that's different. Sometimes if it's not a very sophisticated cybercrime group, most of the malwares and most of the services that they use are both in darknet markets and are developed by someone else. It can be also challenging because you need to differentiate between like different groups that are using the same malware or like the same infrastructure. With the APT groups, also different. I mean, it's totally it totally depends on the case that I would investigate, and then like how big the group is, how skillful the group behind the attack is. So
now, switching gears, you know, you've helped women in the past. What are you doing today to help women get into cybersecurity as well as reverse engineering?
Thanks for asking this question. It's actually very important for me. I'm part of a group in Australia that's called AWSN, Australian Women in Security Network. Amazing board of members. Amazing lady that founded this group a few years ago. I met them 4 or 5 years ago, and I've been to some of their events. I've done some workshops for the like student groups that they
Awesome.
They support. I try to be more active with them. Unfortunately, I haven't done a workshop.
Is it a nonprofit?
Yes.
Can you give the website just for people that want to donate and support them?
Sure, definitely. The website. The name of the group is AWSN.
Okay, look it up on Google and make sure you support. As soon as I'm done here, I'm going right to that website and I'm going to pledge some support because, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, it's all about uplifting one another and providing support, and hopefully this, you know, recording helps one person. And before we even started recording, what I told you was, if it helps one person today, or it helps one person 5 years from now, that's 2 people we affected. And that's what it's all about. This is why I do this. You know, I want to provide value, and women, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, has been instrumental in my success. My mother, I always tell her, you know, I'm a caregiver to my mother. Shout out to her. I always tell her, without you, I would not be where I'm at today. And I know that. And without my aunts providing, you know, that support, women in my family, like I said, has catapulted, you know, like I always say to everyone, a high tide raises all ships. And women in my family has raised all the people in our family. And it means so much to do this season, which is Women in Cybersecurity, because it means a lot. It is a project that I am passionate for. And when we have a nonprofit like what you just mentioned, it is important that everyone supports them, because $1 will help rather than 0.
Exactly. That's also another amazing initiative was a conference that started a few years ago in Australia. It's called GReAt. It's a conference that only focuses on providing trainings and maybe like very short talks and the audience are women again. It's also free, and the workshops are usually done very professionally.
There's also Black Hoodie. There's like these there's small pockets of these amazing conferences helping women get into cybersecurity, as well as taking their skills to another level. And for me, if you know any, please like tweet it out. Like it's super important to me. And this is what the season is about, to shining the light that and letting people know that there's help out there. There's there's a path where you can connect with a lot of people that will help you, that there's people out there that want to see you grow and want to see you win. Let me ask you, what is next for you?
Okay, what is next for me? I love to get more deep into the firmware reversing stuff that I mentioned. Also, still want to improve my skills in reversing and threat intelligence as well. So I guess I have still a long way to go. Lots of things that I need to learn from my colleagues, from other researchers, from people like you, from people who know a lot more than me.
Oh, you're so humble. Same here. I always say we're always improving. Let me ask you, how is it working with colleagues that are smarter than you, as smart as you, and how is that, right? What's that collaboration look like for the people that do not have those people that are like-minded or are getting into the industry and want to know? What does that collaboration look like?
It looks amazing. I don't collaborate a lot, like in one research case with my colleagues, but when I do like a few times a year working on a research together, it's amazing. And I love that my colleagues have like different skill sets, and I can always learn new things from them. I highly suggest teamwork on cybersecurity research cases. It's amazing. I love to do it every time, but again,
it's a passion for you. It's a passion. You, I mean, when I met you, I knew it was you. You were passionate, right? We were in Cancun at SAS, and you were there with your laptop, book bag. I seen the passion and so much respect. Anything for the viewers? Any last comments? You know, we're hitting that hour and stuff like that. Any last comments?
Last thing I want to mention is that many of the works that I've done, like mostly like workshops and public speaking, some research that I did during the past few years, I had an amazing co-worker, like co-trainer, researcher. I want to have a shout out to her. She is my twin sister. Some people might know, some people might not. But yeah, we've done research a lot together, and
actually, I did forget to ask you about that. So we're not gonna save the last question. I got a few more questions. Okay. About a year after I met you, I was shocked to see this article where your twin sister you guys were on a tree, and she had her elbow on your shoulder, and my mind was blown. So please give kudos to your sister. Where does she work? She is also in cybersecurity. Your twin sister, is it identical? Is she identical?
Yes, we are.
Give her her kudos, because I read that article when it came out, and I was like shocked.
Yeah, we've actually been working together. Like, we went to school together. We went to university together.
Time out. We got about 10 more minutes. Do you have 10 more minutes? Because I have a whole list of questions now. You just blew my mind. You went to university with her. You guys studied together. You guys got your bachelor's and everything together. So are you besties, like best of best friends?
Yeah.
I am very surprised you're not working together. But what I would say, does she reverse as well?
Yes, she does.
If there was a mic, I would drop it right now, because I'm like, pff. So it is you guys collaborate a lot, and that's cool, because what happens is when one sister is like above the other one, the other one has to get lifted up because the techniques are being shared and shown. And it's not about you work for this company, I work for that one. It's about growing together. Exactly. Like, it's about uplifting one another. I was unaware of this. Unaware of this. This is amazing. I mean, if you're not following Noushin, where can they follow you at? And your sister. Let's give her flowers, even though she's not here.
Thank you. I'm on Twitter, on LinkedIn as well. Not very active on LinkedIn, but yeah.
But you're around. You're around.
Yeah, I try to be active from time to time. But yeah, LinkedIn, Twitter. Love to be connected.
What is your @ on Twitter so people can follow you?
It's NSHN SHBB.
There we go.
Just remove all the vowels from my...
man, I really enjoyed this one. Like, anytime I have fellow reversers, fellow malware reversers, man, it feels like I'm at DEF CON, at Caesars, at the bar at Caesars, and we're just hanging out, talking. I'm super happy we had this conversation. Thank you so much for your time. I know it's early in Australia and it's late over here, but I knew it was going to be worth it. So thank you for your time, and I'm sure we're going to see each other at SAS. And for anyone that doesn't know, let me just break it down. SAS, which is Kaspersky's Security Analysts Conference, right? Am I messing that up?
Security Analyst Summit.
There we go. Summit. Not conference. Summit. It is the best conference I've ever been to. I'm just going to let you know, since I walked off of the plane wherever it was hosted at, you're talking about 5-star customer service. If it's that, like, they pick you up at the airport. It is a 3-day conference that is amazing. I'm not giving, it has, if you get invited, make sure you go, because there's not enough good things that I can say about it. I went to the conference in 2018 and my mind was blown from when it started to when it ended. All 3 days, and I loved it. And hopefully when everything opens up, I can go back over there and enjoy myself. I literally had the time of my life. And the way I rate conferences is you build lifelong relationships with friends.
That's true. Very true.
And with SAS, I tell you this, I want to say that weekend or that week into the weekend was around 400 people. I still get in touch with the majority of people that I've connected with. Hence you. And hence you are on this podcast. And I greatly appreciate your time. And hopefully in the next Ask, we will see each other, hopefully later this year or next year. But we will meet up again. And thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate it. Flowers to you and everyone. Until next time, have a good one.